Well, hello.
Hello! Welcome to Bible Prophecy and Truth.
Welcome back, everybody.
Hello.
Hello, Sissy.
So, my name's Dan. I'm the author of BibleProphecyandTruth.com. And this is my lovely wife, Colleen, who is co-hosting and chat moderating. And our sister in Christ, Diane, from Minnesota, also co-hosting with us. So, welcome, everyone.
Welcome back, everybody.
Yeah. We're going to talk about the news as it relates to biblical prophecy. And there's some good stuff today. And then we're also going to talk about this kind of increase in sightings of UAPs, right? They don't call them UFOs anymore. They're unidentified aerial phenomenon is what they call them today to get away from the stigma of UFO.
Hello, Bob!
And Riley. So, hey, Bob. Hey, Riley.
Oh,
welcome.
no. Hi,
Or Laney, sorry.
Yeah,
I'm
her
sorry,
last name.
lady. I saw your
You saw
last
your
name
last
and I just
name.
said that. Forgive me. I know your name's
Laney.
Laney.
I hope you guys are doing well.
And
Hi, Jody.
And Jody, welcome. But there's a lot to talk about when we talk about aliens and what the Bible shows us and what we see in technology today and what people are actually reporting, and then what do people actually say and what's common about those reporting sightings and abductions and things like that. So we're going to look at all of that today as well. So welcome.
Okay, so I just wanted to tell you that I was over at Rumble today, and Rumble has this little thing. It's like that, and it says follow. So you want to click that. And also Rumble and YouTube both have a little thing like that. And if you just click it, that'll be a big thumbs up. So we want to do that. And then share it. If you're here, share it. Okay? And then turn on your notification bell.
Right now, Vanna.
Hush, Lucy.
I'll take an A, pal. Can I buy an A?
And then turn on the notification bell so you don't miss any great uploads, because my little sissy poo, she's doing a blooper. And there are 3 years. So that would be 3 years for 2 times a week.
That's about 150 or so.
About 150 or so videos, live streams that she's got to get through to do a blooper video. And I know her, it's not going to be a 5, 10, 15-minute video. It's going to be like an hour video. So
no, I'm just taking the things that I think are really funny, and then
just clipping it off.
When I'm ready to put them on my editor, then I'll narrow it down to other ones.
Okay. Yeah. So it'll be a nice little, it'll be a funny little video.
Don't forget to click the notification bell so you don't miss out on that. And we also, other than doing the lives, we upload videos on a fairly regular basis, sometimes a lot and sometimes a few, but you don't want to miss those either. So make sure you click that bell.
And then make sure really quick that you look at the little banner, because those are all the places that you can get in touch with us if you need to. If you have a question, make sure you reach out. You can put it in the chat. You can watch later. If you're watching later, you can put it in the comment section, or you can send an email to my hubbarub. And also on my Godly Woman, Godly Wife page, I said, how can I pray for you? So we're always doing that. So please reach out.
For women specifically.
Yeah, for women. There's actually a couple guys that.
I know.
But
it's Godly Woman, Godly Wife. So I don't know why guys join
I don't know.
Oh, well.
I don't know.
So welcome, everyone. We'll go ahead and get started. And I'm going to share so Diane can hear and see the videos and everything that I'm sharing with you. So, as usual, the first thing we talk about on every live is the signs that Jesus gave that would herald his coming. And some of the signs are earthquakes, signs in the heavens, famines, pestilences, And one of the things that we look at all the time are earthquakes. And we've had some real doozies lately. This is the last 30 days of earthquakes worldwide, according to USGS.
Look at the ones in the
USGS
United States.
Yeah, there's a
Yeah.
lot. Now,
That's
remember,
really increased.
when we look at the United States,
None in Florida.
let me zoom in here. When we look at the United States, the vast majority, of course, are over here. And then, you know, out of all the earthquakes in the world, out of 11,000, 3,600 of them are in the California area. I mean, lots
They're
and
little
lots.
ones.
And there tends to be a lot of little ones, in that area. And we looked at this last time because this is where that the 8.8 happened. At southeast Russia, right? This is, and if we look at this in the last 30 days, this is just, and this is really just like in the last week, right here in this area, almost 1,000 earthquakes just in this one little area. And look at the number of high magnitude earthquakes. We had the 8.8, 7.4, lots of high sixes, lots and lots of sixes, lots of high fives. I mean, these are all that little area right there. And that's one of the things I wanted to look at was when we look at what happened after the flood. I just want to remind people of this. You know, the fountains of the great deep were broken up and the windows of heaven were opened, and it rained and stormed and was massive upheaval for 40 days. And there's some doctrine out there, I don't know why people teach this, that the flood lasted for 40 days. No, that was just the beginning of the flood. That was just when the waters were pouring down out of the sky and fountaining up from the earth, the hot scalding water for 40 days. The flood actually lasted a year. And it was after the 40 days that the windows of heaven were stopped and the rain from heaven was restrained and the waters returned from off the earth continually. And after the end of 150 days, the waters were abated or decreased in strength and intensity. So it was really 40 days of massive storm, 150 days of the water sloshing back and forth. And what happened when that water was sloshing around during this time? What it says there is that, you know, they abated, but in Psalm it says that at thy rebuke they fled. At the voice of thy thunder they hasted away.
Hi, Jay.
Oh, hey, Jay, welcome, brother.
I'm so happy
Long time no
you.
see. Yeah, I'm glad to see you here. But they go up by the mountains, they go down by the valleys into the place which thou hast founded for them. Mm-hmm. And it's important to understand what happened there. Mm-hmm. At thy rebuke they fled, at the voice of thy thunder they hasted away. If we look at Google Maps, and we look at the ridges in the ocean, this is that area in southeast Russia where all of those earthquakes happened right here. This is the same spot that we're looking at right here where this fault line is. Well, look at where the fault line is. The fault line is exactly where there's this major cliff. It's a literal cliff in the ocean. And there are certain parts of the ocean where there's like vertical cliffs that are very, very tall. This area here is where there's a 7-mile deep chasm right here in this little spot. And what happened when at the end of the flood, when the waters were all sloshing around and dragging, the waters were moving. There was massive movement of water. We see that all across the continent of North America. you can see where there's just water, that rocks were dragged across the surface of the continent. You can even see the drag marks at the bottom of the ocean. You can see these marks where things were moved around, and there's this massive bench all around. So what happened when the waters hasted away? Because remember, we've talked about this before, where when major bodies of water flood, like the Nile River in Egypt, when it floods, it still causes the ground to sink in the area when it floods. What happened at the flood, and this is what people ask, well, what happened to the water? Well, before the flood, we didn't have the high peaks of mountains that we have today, and we didn't have a 7-mile deep chasm under the ocean. This is the sea floor actually sank. In fact, as we've talked about in previous lives and on our Creation versus Evolution seminar, we talk about this very thing where scientists have actually shown where the sea floor has sunk in the past, and they can see the evidence of that, especially with these major cliffs where it's just massively dropped.
So that blue part which is supposed to be the water, that part is all sunk.
Right. This is a ridge where it's very deep along that. It just suddenly drops off.
I want to read what.
Yeah. And some areas are just a cliff where it goes very, very deep. And like I said, this is where it's 7 miles deep right here in this area. That's the Mariana Trench, where it's almost 7 miles deep.
Jay said some people speculate that many of the crater sites on Earth they called asteroid impact sites are actually waters from beneath coming up.
Right, because you remember the fountains of the great deep were let loose at the flood. And that's a very good point, Jay. Thank you. Because people think that these spots were craters, but they're actually spots where the water from beneath actually geysered up. And that's what you saw for 40 days and 40 nights was water raining down from heaven, from the sky, right? I mean, it was coming down from space. It was very cold water. And then the hot scalding water coming from beneath. And that created a storm like you've never seen, right, for 40 days. And then it sloshed around for 150 days. It created the mountains. You remember I showed you this where, we have a vertical cliff that has dinosaur footprints running across it. That was what happened at the flood. There was so much upheaval on the earth that it took that ground that was flat and was level at one point and actually turned it vertical because there was so much movement of the earth. I mean, these are just things that happened at the flood. And I'm not going to go into great detail. I just wanted to remind everyone of that, with these fault lines and then that whole area around the Pacific where we're seeing these massive earthquakes right now. And they're still happening, by the way. Mm-hmm. If you go to just the last day, we've still had 33 earthquakes here. It's not done. And they're not just tiny little earthquakes. This is that area southeast of Russia where we had the 8.8. Oh. And they're still happening. I mean, it's kind of calming down, but they're still going on. And it's, this is something that we're watching big time. We're watching the earthquakes and volcanoes and, all the things that this big ridge where the Earth's crust is broken, right? This is what we see in this map, is where the Earth's crust is broken. And this is where all the water went after the flood. And, God set it up so perfectly that at the time of the end, at the time where he returns, at the time that is now, is when all of the breaks in the crust of the earth start really getting ground down and acting up. And we're seeing volcanic activity and earthquakes like the earth has never seen before, because God knew it would happen exactly that way, which is exactly what he said would happen. One of the things that would herald his coming. So when we talk about when is the end of the world? And if you're new to this channel, if you go to BibleProphecyandTruth.com and scroll about 2/3 of the way down the page to where you see this picture, this is where I talk about the signs that Jesus gave, and I have graphs and charts of things that are going on, the storms and the natural disasters, and then at the bottom of that we've got a playlist of 14 videos. Diane created a video for each one of the signs, and we've got a live stream in that playlist. And you can, if you prefer to read, of course you can read. I talk about all the things that Jesus said and all the other reasons that are biblically sound as to why now is the time. So I wanted to kind of go through that a little bit today because of the earthquakes that we saw there and the things that are happening. And then, one of the signs was there would be famines. And there are literally famines all over the world right now. There's people starving all over the world today. And in Iran, they're having massive water crisis there. And it's happening all over the world, really. This is just one of the new articles that I saw just in the last day. And one of the things that it's just so crazy, all of these AI data centers that they're building them in places like Texas and other places where they have water crises. And the data centers are huge and actually require the requirements for water to cool those data centers is actually projected to exceed the entire water consumption for the whole state in some of the places they're building these data centers. And not just in the US, but all over the world where they're building data centers. Places like China where they're having massive drought problems. They're building these data centers that require so much water to cool them. It's absolutely insane, and it's taking away from people. But they don't seem to care about that. And it's all part of the end, and we're watching it. And that's what Jesus said. Jesus said, and I want to point this out. Jesus said, if the days weren't shortened,
We would destroy ourselves.
except those days should be shortened, there should be no flesh saved.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what, when we look at all of the things that mankind is doing, it is literally a threat to mankind itself. The birth rates have gotten so low in some places that it's where the population is actually dwindling. The things we're doing with drugs and experimental drugs and viruses and vaccines and all of the things we're doing to reduce immune systems of people. There's just so much. And that's what Jesus meant. Except those days should be shortened. There should be no flesh saved. If God doesn't come back when he does, we would actually destroy the entire human race. I think that's what that means.
Yeah.
There would be no flesh saved. We would actually wipe out the human race. Wow. I'm glad God's got this, right?
Yes.
I'm glad he's in control.
Yeah.
So moving on, there's a couple of things in the news that I want to talk about. Before we get into the aliens discussion, there's just a few things in the news that are happening. One of the things is this whole thing with whether or not there's going to be a two-state solution, whether or not there's going to be a Palestinian state created or not, because if you should know, hopefully you know that there is not any place called Palestine. There's no state, right? It's a region. It was renamed by a vindictive Roman emperor who hated the Jews and renamed that area Palestine to spite them. And the region was called Palestine for a long, 2,000 years almost. But it always was Israel, and it still is Israel. And there's no Palestine. There never was a Palestinian state. There's Arab nomadic people lived there, for a long, long time. It was a very desolate region. But they're talking about creating a Palestinian state now. And that's one of the things that most of the world right now, I believe it's like pretty much every country except the United States and Germany and Australia are for creating a Palestinian state and having a two-state solution. Germany, United States, and Australia. Yeah. Pretty much the rest of the world is for this. And there's a lot of things going back and forth. And one of the things that we just talked about, we saw in the news, is that Israel is planning on annexing Gaza. You know that they pulled out of Gaza in 2006. They completely pulled out of Gaza and left the Arabs there to their own devices and just left them alone. And they grew in size. There's millions of Gazans now. They grew in size. There's no genocide happening, of course, because they grew. The population grew massively since 2006. But it's just Gaza City. There's no Palestine. And so that's the whole argument, is whether or not there should be a Palestinian state, whether they should create one to make it official, right, for the world. So that's the whole argument. And the UN betrayed its own charter with a premature Palestine recognition. And there's things going on with they, right? We all know who they is. The deep state. It's not just the deep state. The deep state's just an arm of the secret society. But it's them, right? They want this to happen. And the UN, again, here's another one of these, right? The UN admitted that 95% of its Gaza aid trucks were intercepted. And we all know by whom they were intercepted. Hamas, right? It was, they go with armed terrorists and take over the caravans of the aid trucks, and they steal it all. But then the U.S. demands all or nothing deal to free the hostages, end the Gaza war. How long has this been going on, right? How many presidents have tried to create a peace treaty in the Middle East with Israel and the Arabs, right? The Muslims really is who they're fighting. And for decades, since World War II, literally. And so it's an ongoing thing. And, Germany's halting arms exports to Israel as, they talk about wanting to go in and finish the conquest of Gaza and just take it over. So they're like, oh, no, you can't do that. And so this is really, it's turning into a big deal, and it could cause conflict. It could cause conflict to go beyond those borders, right? We're waiting to see how this all plays out. And, Trump is pushing for the Abraham Accords. Israel, has this idea to erase the whole idea of a Palestinian state, because there is no Palestine. There's no official Palestine state. It never did exist. It never has existed. And they claim that they have a Palestinian state, but they don't. They want to, of course, because, it's all part of keeping that thorn in the side of Israel. They don't want to get rid of that, just like all the Arab states don't want to get rid of Gaza, because they like the thorn in the side of Israel, because the Muslims hate Israel. They hate the Jews. And that's the only reason for all of this conflict. But that they want to erase the idea, because they don't want the thorn to stay there. So Trump is calling on the Arab world to join the peace accords, the Abraham Accords. And, he's doing a bang up job of getting this done. And there's a lot of activity on joining the peace accords. So, I'm really hoping that all of this back and forth stuff, in fact, this decision by Israel to take over Gaza may just push things to make it happen, right? It could be a little button that forces things to happen quickly. So we'll see. I mean, we're watching this with bated breath, really, because we're waiting to see if the confirmation of the covenant is going to be signed. The confirmation of the covenant, for those that don't know, is the Abrahamic covenant that God made with Abraham, where his seed, his offspring, would have a place, a homeland, and this is the borders. There would be a place called Israel, and this would be the borders of it. That's what the covenant was. The promised land, as the Jews called it. And so when the world comes together in Daniel chapter 9, it says that the man of sin, this evil person, which will be the Antichrist, will confirm the covenant with many for 1 week, which is the signing of a peace treaty with the world, basically, with many. I'm sure it's going to be with the UN and with the Arab nations and with the world as a whole. We'll sign this peace treaty, which is, if Trump is successful with the Abraham Accords and getting this peace accords where the world basically will sign on to this peace treaty, then that is almost certainly going to be that prophetic happening. And the Antichrist will be one of the people that signs that accord.
His country. Well,
he will be one of the people
that actually sign
it. He'll be a man that signs it. Yes.
Oh.
And so we're waiting to see if all of this happens. I mean, I'm hoping it's this year.
They're saying September.
I know, and that would be absolutely perfect prophetic timeline in the fall, because if you look at the prophecies of the Bible and the comings of Jesus Christ, in his first coming and his second coming. His first coming was in the fall feast. His second coming is almost certainly going to be his first coming, was in the spring feast. Sorry about that. The second coming is almost certainly going to be the fall feasts. And so the 7-year Metonic cycle, the 7-year peace agreement, will be 7 lunar years, right? Where it'll be during the fall feasts or around that time that the peace treaty will be signed, because then 7 years later is when Christ will return. So we know that's in prophecy. We know that's going to happen. It's just a matter of when it's going to happen.
And a lot of people, I can just see people right now going, no, because you'll never know what hour Jesus will return. It's like,
thanks for pointing that out, because people do that all the time.
Because they'll say, there's no way you can ever predict that.
And I want to just point this out. We know perfectly the day of the Lord so comes as a thief in the night. Yes, to those that are, sorry, my mouse went crazy on me. To those that are in darkness. Only to those that are in darkness. We are children of the light. We are not of the night nor of darkness. That day should overtake us as a thief. So if you're one of those people that just said that, please read that scripture.
Yeah, it just said.
Because
then
it's not going to overtake you as a thief.
Well, then 5:6 also goes on to say, therefore, let us not sleep as do others.
Let us watch and be sober.
Exactly, because Jesus tells us to watch in many places. And he gave us all the information about the last days that he did, because he expects us to watch. He expects us to be part of those that understand among the people that shall instruct many, as it says in Daniel. Yeah. Where does it say it? Oh, I gotta do a little search here. Sorry. Instruct. It might be in Daniel 11. That's Daniel 11, sorry. They that understand among the people shall instruct many. That's that's one of the things Jesus expects. He told us to watch over and over and over. And the words were closed up and sealed until the time of the end. But now that we're at the time of the end, they are no longer closed up and sealed. That's the point of that right there. The words are closed up and sealed only until the time of the end, not forever. God painted pictures that would be literally just come to life and be so easily recognized at the end. And that's why now we can see them for what they are so clearly. So we're watching. We're waiting for that. Johnson said that Judea and Samaria belonged to Israel. Now, if you don't know, there's an area called the West Bank. It was renamed to the West Bank after World War II because they didn't want to upset the Muslims and call it Judea and Samaria, which is what it really is. But it really is Judea and Samaria. The area of Judea is what Jesus prophesied would be a place of horror when the Antichrist takes over the world. When he sits in the temple of God, claiming to be God in the middle of that peace treaty, 3.5 years after the signing of the peace treaty, he's going to break the treaty and he's going to claim to be God. And he's going to tell all of the Muslims in the area of Judea, which is the West Bank today, to just kill all of their Jewish neighbors. Because that's where it's a mix of Jews and Muslims in that area. And so we know why Jesus warned them to just run when you see that event. So we're waiting for all of these things. We're waiting, of course, for the peace treaty to be signed first. And then we know that 8 months later, we're going to see the Antichrist stand up and begin gathering power. I believe that means he's going to claim to be the Mahdi of Islam, and he's going to get 10 Islamic nations to agree that he is the Mahdi, and he's going to create that fourth beast of Daniel 7, which then comes together in one beast with the three other nations in Revelation 13. I mean, we're watching for all of this stuff to happen. As soon as we see that peace treaty signed, we're going to know. We're going to know when certain events, and Jesus said, no man knows the day or the hour, but we certainly will know the time, and we will know the approximate time within weeks of the return of Christ when other events happen. Just like Paul said, we're not of darkness that day should overtake us as a thief. We know. And then just a reminder what Muslims do. I mean, this is all about giving the Muslims what they want, right? Creating a Palestinian state is giving Islam their thorn in the side of Israel permanently and giving them what they want. But this is what we can expect from Muslims, right? That this is happening almost daily in Nigeria, other places in Africa, the DRC, and all the other places that are a mix of Muslims and Christians, as Muslims are murdering Christians literally every day. Here's the new article. In Nigeria, Muslims murdered 17 Christians in a jihad raid in the Plateau State of Nigeria. And this is constant. This is happening literally every day. So this is what Muslims do. And, the Palestinians say two-state solution isn't our goal. Our goal is caliphate and only caliphate. And if you understand what the Muslims are waiting for, Satan set up exact duplicate prophecies in Islam to match the Bible perfectly in a perfectly opposite mirror. So when the Antichrist and the false prophet of the Bible come on the scene, the Muslims are going to think it's their Muslim Jesus and their Mahdi. And he's going to set up the caliphate. Just as the Bible tells us that the Antichrist will set up his seat of power in Jerusalem, so is the Mahdi prophesied to set up the caliphate in Jerusalem. And that's what they're stating right here. This is what they're waiting for, because that's Muslim prophecy, because Satan duplicated the Bible so perfectly that when the Bible's prophecies come to pass, Islam will be fooled 100%. They'll think it's their prophecies coming to pass because Satan has set them up for failure.
It'll be
so
real
perfectly.
hard to try to convince a Muslim during that time.
Well, and they're going to be absolutely convinced that their prophecy is coming to pass.
That's really scary.
We'll be able to show them in the Bible where it's really the Antichrist and the false prophet, but they're so locked in with this deceit. It's the lying wonders of Satan.
Yeah.
And they're so deceived by it that and I mean, I've talked to a lot of Muslims over the course of the last 20 years or so, and I have yet to convert a Muslim to Christianity, because all they do is argue, and they've all got the same arguments, and I can show them where they're wrong, where the Bible is true, and they just won't believe it. I hope someday to help a Muslim. I mean, I only say that I don't know for sure. I know that there's a lot of Muslims. There's a lot of people searching and finding my Muslims in the Bible page. And I know that there's a lot of people in African states and even Middle Eastern states that actually hit my website and look at that page. So
what did you say?
I only don't know whether or not I've converted someone, but maybe I have helped plant some seeds and God was able to convert some that did. I hope so.
What was a country that you said what you were getting a lot of hits from? The UK, right?
When?
Just lately, just last week. You were saying, you said there's like a huge.
Oh no, that was Hong Kong.
Oh,
that was actually a hacker trying to hack my site.
Oh, okay.
Wow.
Yeah, trying to hack
some Hong Kong hacker was hitting one of my pages or one of my sites and trying to hack it.
He couldn't do
unsuccessfully, but
okay,
yeah. So, but this is what Muslims do, right? Here's a wounded Hamas jihadi reciting the Quran about casting terror into the hearts of disbelievers. This is their goal, to cast terror into our hearts. That's why they do mass killings, right? And
they want us to be
suicide
afraid.
bombings and just wiping out people as much as they can because they want us to be afraid. Exactly. ISIS Christians in Africa must pay the jizya. Muslims should attack Christians in Europe. This is when, ISIS was kind of set way back, but it wasn't totally obliterated. They have regrouped. And of course, you have to remember that Hamas, Hezbollah, Al-Qaeda, ISIS, all of these groups are just Islam. Mm-hmm. You can't wipe out ISIS and expect it to just go away because you've got 2 billion Muslims in the world. They've got a huge
and growing.
Right, and growing. So ISIS is again, Christians must pay the jizya. So if you don't want them to kill you, you've got to pay them. It's kind of like the mob, right? You pay them for protection from themselves, and Muslims should attack Christians in Europe. They're telling Muslims in Europe to attack because they're a large minority now. And once they become a large minority in a country, they start acting out. They start attacking. They start demanding Sharia law, which is exactly what we're seeing in Europe.
Oh, the UK. That is such a really sad thing, what's happening.
Yeah, I know. Ugh.
And then, Mom Donnie, this guy will turn New York City into Londonistan overnight. Oh, literally. Yes. He wants police to ignore Muslim crimes. And you remember last time I showed you where he wants the police to ignore crimes against Jews, and he wants them to ignore any Muslim crimes of any kind. This is like, wow, is this just blatant in your face Islam terrorism right here? Mm-hmm. I mean, tell me this is different, right? This is a man in a suit, just like the new
The
Syrian
Syria.
leader, right? The terrorist in a suit now. It's
Yeah.
the same thing here in New York. I really hope this guy does not get placed into power,
He sure, I mean,
because he will bring horrific things to New York.
yeah, especially if
Wow.
you have Elizabeth Warren on your side. Run.
I know. Yeah, she
Please
says
run.
she says that he speaks for the Democrats. Wow. Yeah. Yeah. And the problem with New York, I don't live in New York, but the problem is that if this happens in New York, it's going to bleed,
Oh,
right.
of course.
and it's going to get worse, and it's going to, it's not going to be just New York that suffers.
Oh, no.
Yeah. And then, you know, Obama never cared about race, except, you know, he did because he's a racist. But it was all about creating division. We've talked about this many times before. Here's somebody else saying the very same thing that I say all the time, right? Which there are a lot of people saying this, especially today, that
Yeah,
he was race baiting, not healing America, but dividing it.
he was keeping them.
And he set the stage for a globalist anti-Christian takeover, which is exactly what we're
awesome.
seeing, you know, fomenting right now into this anti-white, anti-Christian racism. Anti-Christian is happening all over, and it's gaining global power with the whole Hamas thing, you know, where literally half the world supports Hamas, which is insanity, literal insanity. It's a grand delusion where the lying wonders of Satan are being caused to be believed by these people because they don't love God. They're deluded by God because they hate him. And we're watching it happen. It's absolutely amazing. I'm going to show you this little thing on X. This is just something that Trump has just been successful at, and I'm really happy about this. This is yes, I voted for this, right?
Mhm.
So Trump just held a briefing, right? And the first thing that's gonna happen is that federal judges can no longer block nationwide. So their rulings will only affect their local district. That
so
was
glad.
something that had to happen. We got these eensy weensy little local district federal judges blocking the president of the United States
From doing anything.
across all 50 states. So they're making it
that.
so they can only affect their local district. Yeah. Have the
Oh,
power you got where you are, but you're not the president. You're a little
peon judge.
judge. Oh my God. And you know why? And you know why I put this here? You know why I put this article right after talking about Obama, right?
Because he's doing everything opposite from Obama.
Because Obama's the one that set up these judges to be able
yes,
to do what they're
that's
doing.
true. Yeah, he did.
Obama put this in place for these little peon judges to be able to block the president of the United
he sure
States.
did. Yeah, he sure
Well,
did.
Trump just turned that around. I'm so glad.
Yeah.
I voted for this. The shocking truth, right? You know, this is just, you know, 35 of the 40 nationwide injunctions came from just 5 districts. Guess where?
Yeah.
Maryland, D.C., Massachusetts, California, and Washington. Imagine that.
They're all
The
blue
deepest
country.
blue in the world. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I'm really glad this is happening. This is another thing I'm very, very glad of. I voted for this, and I'm really happy that parents can now opt their kids out of transgender content in their schools.
LGBTQ.
I am so happy
Yeah.
about that.
Wow.
Oh, I'm so happy.
Good.
And I no longer have to pay for transgender surgeries on kids. Oh, I'm so happy
Thank
about that.
you.
Yeah.
Thank you, Jesus.
Yeah.
You know, oh, that was just something that, you know, it almost makes me want to quit my job so that I'm not paying for those surgeries. You know,
No.
man, that's just so awful.
Please don't quit your job.
What's Jay saying something?
Oh, wait, what do you
What's
say?
what's wrong with the little colors?
What was that about?
Uh,
Just kidding.
It was back. He goes, yeah, he was kidding. He
Oh,
was talking about this.
no, I know. Yeah, we did see that.
And then they're arresting the Trendaragua
Trend
gang,
day.
whatever.
Trend
The
day.
10
Aragua.
Trendaragua gang members. 2,711 of them. Yes. These are the most violent gang members in like the world. And they came across our border freely under Biden. I'm glad they're getting rid of them. This was just, you heard about what happened in Colorado, right? I mean, this is just awful. Mm-hmm. So I'm really, really happy about these things.
Yeah.
Sanctuary cities are losing all federal funding. Yes. Yes.
I'm happy
yes,
with
I
that
voted
too.
for this. I definitely did. I voted for change.
Yeah.
Good change, not the bad change that Obama change brought bad change. I'm glad we're getting some good change here. Yeah. This is so awesome. Mm-hmm. Mineral rights in Africa, securing peace deals right and left. Trump,
Rwanda and Congo.
Trump is the peace master.
Yeah, he is.
I mean, he is the peace president.
That's why I feel like he's going to bring the peace treaty. You know, like he is going to bring this to fruition.
I do too. I really believe that God did save Trump. God saved Trump to bring about the Abraham Accords. I really believe that. We'll see if it's true or not. I really believe that's what he is going to use.
But I don't know if everybody believes him for this. Trump, every time it gets brought up between Ukraine and Russia, he always says there are so many people that are dying in these wars, and he hates war.
Why can't we just stop killing?
People will actually say that he loves war. He talks about it almost on the daily.
Through strength, and this is one thing that has shown the world our strength is the bombing of Iran and taking out he took out a whole mountain. They had a site buried under a mountain, and they actually got to it and took it out. Yeah, that's peace through strength.
We are going to get on aliens. So if everybody is saying, when is this going to happen?
And I'm going to finish the news here and get to it momentarily. So birthright citizenship heads to the Supreme Court. This was initially for babies of slaves. It was that long ago that this law was created, and they're using it to to go on vacation.
And then have a baby, and then they're automatically
they're coming here, having a baby, and using that law illegally and not for what the law was for in the first place. So I'm glad. I'm just glad to see all of this stuff happening. Really, really glad. So and it's we're fixing some of the things that man broke purposefully, and I'm really, really glad that it's happening. So moving on a little bit. China and Russia practice destroying the enemy submarine after Trump moves U.S. subs toward Russia. China and Russia always take sides against the United States and Europe, and they take sides with Iran and North Korea. So this is nothing new, but they're showing their show of strength to counter Trump's show of strength. So this, things could get bad.
It's like a school.
We'll see.
Did you hear that Xi Jinping may oust him out?
May what?
They may kick his behind out.
Oh, they're trying to. That's why.
Regime change.
That's why Xi Jinping has actually assassinated quite a number of his high-level people, because he's trying to stop the coup.
Oh, so they're trying to get him out.
He's been murdering people big time. But yeah, they are trying to get him out. But so we'll see how all this plays out. We know that we know that prophecy also brings a war that ends in the destruction of the third part of man. So the war is probably going to end in a nuclear exchange. And, you know, so we know what's going to happen. And I think China, when you look at the prophecy and the fifth trumpet, China, or not the fifth trumpet, sorry, the sixth trumpet war, China fits that description better than anything, in my opinion. So look on my website for my 7 trumpets videos and my 7 trumpets document there. You might agree with me. Putin focuses aim to control Russia's internet. Going back to USSR type stuff, right? Turning into a dictatorship like China. You know, they want to control the internet like China controls their internet, right? This is, you know, Putin is not a good man, as Tucker Carlson wants us to believe. So, you know, that guy is definitely an enemy of ours. He is a controlled opposition plant, almost certainly. You know, this is not okay to control your people so that they can't access to information. That's communism. That's you know, the USSR was broken up, but Putin really wants to bring back the USSR. He really does. But he knows he has to fight the world to do that. But he's really pushing things the wrong direction there. Here's something that just, it struck my eye. And when I looked at this, and it's like, you know, what they're talking about is, and what's going on right now is robots, right? Because Tesla is, you know, the owner of Tesla also has this robot that he's building. And this robot using AI is actually very, very advanced right now. And it's becoming, you know, we were talking about where all of this manufacturing coming to the United States and all of these millennials and Gen Zs that don't want to work. How are they going to put people to work in those factories? Robots, right? Robots will fill the chair, so to speak, in the manufacturing plants. And I was looking, these are projected, they're almost at the point where they can literally be purchased today because they're that advanced. And they're talking about maybe $20,000 to $30,000 per robot. So that's a cheap seat.
Yeah.
That's way cheaper than hiring somebody for a year. The robot will almost certainly last longer than a year. You know, that's a very cheap seat. So,
car.
You know, this is kind of disturbing in a way when you talk about that and you look at what AI is doing. AI is a big, huge deception machine. I mean, it is the biggest propaganda machine that they've come up with so far. And people think that AI is trustworthy. And it depends on whose AI it is, what answers you'll get, because it depends on who programmed it. It is not an autonomous thinking brain. We have to understand that it's a tool of the enemy, big time. And then last but not least, I saw this, had to share. You know, this brought to memory one time when we went out to dinner and I had a steak that I could swear to God was pieces of meat glued together. And then I see this article and this is actually legal in the United States.
What?
Where they're gluing together leftover scraps of meat and putting it together in a steak type thing and selling it as a steak. Yeah. And that brought back a memory where I remember one time I had a steak and I was like, is this a steak? And I bet you that's what I ate because it's legal in the US. They don't have to tell you. There's no label. There's no accountability. Although it was banned. It was banned in Europe and parts of Asia because of possible bacteria contamination and problems with digestive complications. But it's legal here in the
But
U.S.
it's glued together.
Yeah, I know. I just had to share that because I actually
Wow.
remember eating a steak that I was like, this is not steak. And I'll bet you that's what it was.
Mhm.
Weird stuff that's allowed in this country. So one last little meme, and then we're going to get to the alien stuff. I had to share
I
this.
hope everybody comes back now because a lot of people left. The numbers went down, so I'm
Well,
like, no, wait.
Oh, well. The people that are here are the ones that need to be here. So praise God. If we are content to offend God rather than displease our friends or relatives, then we are greatly deceived if we regard ourselves as a genuine Christian.
That was mine.
I really want people to think about that, because we're so worried about displeasing our friends and relatives that we won't stand firm in our faith.
Mm-hmm.
We need to. All right, so onward and forward. Tulsi Gabbard acknowledges the possibility of aliens. Pledges public updates. So let's talk about aliens. All right, there's a lot. I'm glad we've got an hour to talk about this because I've got some videos I'm going to show you, but I've also got some pictures I'm going to show you and just talk about a couple of things real quick. Because if you know things like, for example, this is something that's been around for a very long time. This asymmetrical capacitor. I actually have looked into this quite a bit, where we have technology today, and I want to show you this because this is what this capacitor can do. This would be like a flat airplane wing, or the airplane is no longer flying, it's now falling. But they turn this capacitor on and suddenly it can go through the air and fly again. And when we look at things that people are not, there's things that cannot be explained. There are things that people report on. There's literally thousands of reports every day. There's a chart that I have. Where did the chart go? Here it is. You know, the amount of sightings, right, has risen, peaked in 2015, and still having peaks, right, where these are sightings that are happening all the time of people seeing these things flying. They don't know what it is or how it's possible that these things are flying. I'm sure if you've done any kind of research about this, you know about the Tic Tac machines that we see flying, that aircraft have filmed, the United States military has filmed these objects flying, and it you never get a really good picture of them, but there's absolute irrefutable evidence of things that are being seen and actually documented that defy what we know as the rules of physics, right? Well, they defy what we know as physics. And we don't know how they could possibly be doing what they're doing. But things like this, this is old. This is technology that's been around for a long time, actually. And if the military has black tech, or tech that's so ultra secret that nobody knows anything about it, and they're doing test flights, which it just happens that a lot of these sightings happen over military bases. Well, maybe it's military tech that they're testing. We have tech right now that, there's like this kind of thing where these electromagnetic fields have the same shape as some of the fields around these objects, like the Tic Tac, for example, like this. Most people have seen something similar to this, where there's these Tic Tac shaped objects flying over the ocean, causing a disturbance in the water. and they're as big as a jet, right? They really are that big, and they're shaped like that, and they're defying the laws of physics. They're moving through the air without having any kind of friction tail. They don't have a sonic boom going faster than the speed of sound. They're flying under the water and back out of the water and having no difference in their speed or trajectory. Right. I mean, there's all kinds of things that people are seeing that there is absolutely no doubt that it's happening. We don't know what it is, but there's really no doubt that things are being seen, and they're actually being seen. So the question is it military tech? Maybe. We don't know. There's no way to prove that at this point. We do know
they're trying to make spaceships.
Right. Well, people think they're spaceships and alien tech because we don't think we can do it.
Not aliens, but I mean, maybe the military is trying to make spaceships.
Build spaceships.
Oh, right. Well, yeah, absolutely.
In sci-fi movies, like they just...
all of our technology is to be better and faster and stronger than the other guys so we can beat them up, right? That's, everything is about violence and war in this world, unfortunately, but that's where all of our tech is going. If we spent as much time on tech for hydroponics and growing food to feed the world and taking all the trillions of dollars that all the world's billionaires have, we could literally feed the world. Easy. If we just put all our time and energy and money into that instead of war. And people hoarding. What do these billionaires need with billions of dollars? It's just it's just horrific what we count as acceptable in this world. But the tech, we don't know what tech is there. We know that there's President Trump said something that really caught my ear a while ago. He said we've got weapons and technology that you just would not believe.
Yeah.
I'm paraphrasing, but he said something very similar to that. And it's because he knows about stuff that we don't.
Of course.
Well, don't you think that people, when the drones first came out, people thought they were alien ships too?
Yeah.
Well, yes. Yeah. In fact, people see drones today and think it's an alien. Yeah.
Yeah.
Certain drones, because they're larger, they have larger drones that actually, and remember, it was a while ago, we looked at where the reports of those drones flying over around New York and around
last year.
Yeah, Pennsylvania and around military bases. Some of those drones were really large and oddly shaped, and it appeared that they were using some kind of electromagnetic propulsion. The thing is, one of the things that we don't look at is the United States has 400 million people. China and India have over 1 billion each. And all people are just people, right? There's a certain amount of genius in the United States. By far, the largest population of geniuses, by far, is in China and India. Maybe they have some black tech that we don't know about that they're testing, because one of the things that they see things coming across the Pacific, they see things hitting the coast of California, which is directly the shortest distance from China to the United States, right? There's things that are seen out there that maybe China's testing stuff. So, I mean, there's a lot of questions that can be raised as far as that goes.
Jay says, I'm telling you, teleportation 2025. Just remember, I called it.
Teleportation. You did. I remember you bringing that up.
I don't know if Jay knows this little story, but Dan bought himself a Christmas present. It was a little baby drone.
It's a little drone.
Yeah. It was a little baby drone, and he could take it up really high and everything. Well, there was talk around our neighborhood. Nobody knew that it was his drone. And there was talk around the neighborhood from this one lady in the neighborhood that is kind of a busybody, and she said if she ever sees the drone, she's going to shoot it out of the sky.
She's going to shoot it out of the sky. Well, good luck with that, because it's only about that big.
It is only like a tiny little drone.
Good luck hitting it, especially
That's
when I'm
illegal
flying
to
around.
do that because you could miss and you could hit somebody.
I know, or you could hit it and cause damage because of it falling out of the sky. It's got batteries. It's pretty heavy.
Well, you know,
drones today.
Wow.
I saw a program where they make drones look really different. There's drones that are huge, like
there's
a car
massive drones
that look like a little white airplane.
Yeah.
There are some like a spider.
Yeah.
That go
There's
up.
all kinds of different styles of drones, and then the military drones are sleek. Yeah.
Well, what this lady
unmanned
didn't
aircraft,
know is that he actually got clearance from the airport because we're real close to an airport, and he got clearance from.
Yeah, I had permission to fly my drone in the area. So she would have had to replace the drone. Yeah, if she shot it out of the sky, I'd be coming to her for damages. Yeah, she's gonna pay for my drone because she has no right to shoot it out of the sky.
Christmas present.
Yeah, it was fun to fly around. I haven't really played with it for a while.
I'd be like riding my bike, and all of a sudden I'd hear this loud buzzing sound, and it would be like him going over me.
I'm following her with my drone.
I know.
It was kind of fun.
I was like, "There's my husband."
Yeah. So now I'm gonna play. I'm gonna switch gears a little bit because, yes, some of these sightings, and one of the things we have to remember is. And you're going to hear corroboration of this. 99% of the sightings that are seen, 99% of them, when someone goes to investigate, can be explained away by either natural occurrences, or it was a mistaken identity, or some, military attack, or just an airplane or a helicopter or something people saw and didn't know what it was, or reflections of light and different things that cause phenomenon. 99% of them can be explained away. But there's that residual 1%. It's like, what is that?
Like the one that Andy saw.
Right. Well, that one could have been, that was like an orb. That one could have been a light reflection phenomenon, which is actually common. Because at especially at dusk, at certain times of the day, when the sun is setting, the atmosphere can reflect things from the surface, and sometimes orbs will seem to be flying through the air and things like that. I'm not saying that's what it was. I'm just saying it's possible that that's what that was. But I'm going to show you a video now where an astrophysicist was interviewed and talks about this very thing, and talks about that 1% residual. So I'm gonna play this video for you now, and maybe some of you may have seen this already, but it's about 10 minutes, so just watch. It's very interesting.
Dr. Ross, you are an expert in a variety of areas. You're an astrophysicist, you're an apologist, and you're one of the best people to go to on this topic of UFOs and aliens and extraterrestrials. This is a subject that for a long time, I think, was seen as fringe or was sort of not discussed maybe in the mainstream. And suddenly here we are. It's a topic we're seeing in Congress. We're seeing testimony in Congress. We're seeing all sorts of government documentation on this, and stories that previously, again, were sort of concealed coming out into the open. What do you make of sort of this newfound cultural, resurgence and interest in this topic?
Well, I became a UFO expert, but not on purpose. I was an amateur astronomer before I became a professional astronomer. So every university where I served, they said, you have to handle all the UFO reports. So, and about 99% of what people would report to me as UFOs, I could explain as natural phenomena, a hoax, or secret government military activity. But there's a 1% residual that falls in a different category. And these would be UFO phenomena that observers report violating the laws of physics. On the other hand, they leave evidence indicating that they're real phenomena. And that, I think, explains why you have a lot of scientists and skeptics saying that this doesn't exist, because they come from a worldview that doesn't permit the existence of non-physical reality. But as a Christian, as a believer in the inerrancy of the Bible, I do believe in the existence of non-physical reality. because the Bible tells us God created two different species of intelligent life, one that's constrained by the physics of the universe and one that is not. And we're talking about humans that are indeed constrained by the dimensions and laws of physics of the universe, and angels who are not. And these angels live in a different dimensional realm, but God has given them the power to come in temporarily into our realm. So I think that's where that 1% residual falls. And some of the strongest evidence for that is that where you got multiple observers tracking a UFO going through the atmosphere, which means we can actually calculate its trajectory and velocity. And the velocities often run between 5 and 25,000 miles per hour. But the observers never record the occurrence of a sonic boom or a heat friction trail behind the UFO. If it was a physical object, you would get a sonic boom. You would get a heat friction trail, just like you do when one of the spaceships goes through our atmosphere from the International Space Station. However, there are a couple of thousand cases documented where the UFO not only goes through our atmosphere, it crashes into the Earth. And when you go to the crash site, you see a crater. If there's snow, the snow is melted. The vegetation is consistently damaged. But as you investigate that crater site, there's never any debris. There's no artifacts. If it was a physical crash crashing into the Earth, you'd be able to recover some debris.
So remember, we might have tech to do that, right? That can defy the laws of physics as we know it today. But if we had tech that crashed, it would have left some debris there. It would have left part of the crashed craft there, right? When they go to investigate. This is what's so interesting about this, is when you go and there's a crater and there's snow melted, there's vegetation destroyed, there's an impact site, and nothing, not one shred of anything. That's what makes this so interesting.
And artifacts. But the fact that you see a crater and melted snow and damaged vegetation means that something real caused that. So we're dealing with non-physical reality, or what the French astrophysicist Jacques Vallée referred to. He says we're dealing with interdimensional phenomena. I mean, he's not a believer, but that was his conclusion. We're dealing with a phenomena that's operating in dimensions different than those of the universe.
You know, what you just described is so fascinating to me. As a Christian, let me start there. You know, as a Christian, I think of Ephesians 6. I think of the verses that we often don't talk about, you know, even in the church, about the spiritual battle that is going on, that there's this unseen realm where this battle is unfolding, right? And I think about what you were just describing. I also have pondered as a journalist, and I've often thought, okay, well, you have a situation where people are claiming that there are beings and there are spaceships, and they're talking about them as though they're physical, and they will describe it in a way where these beings are so intelligent, they've been, you know, unable to be detected. They somehow crash, though. You know, they're so intelligent, they crash, and then they mysteriously disappear right away. And it just doesn't seem to add up. You know, if you're so intelligent and so good at escaping, how did your aircraft crash consistently, right?
Right.
And so what you're describing as these spiritual elements, I think it's really, really an interesting idea to think of it that way. And I think the question people would then naturally have for you, and I'd love to get your take on this, right? You know, what exactly would you definitively say, and it seemed like you were saying this, that this is essentially the angelic and demonic realm, really the demonic realm that maybe we're dealing with here in a spiritual.
So, and one thing I want to point out here is you might say, well, why, if a demon was pretending to be some alien craft crashing, why would they do that? Why would a demon pretending to be an alien craft crash? Well, here's what I think. I think they're doing it on purpose because they want Satan is literally setting us up to believe in aliens. Right. Because of the fifth trumpet, which is about to sound. Mm-hmm. And if you read the fifth trumpet and look at the description of those creatures, I'll bet you, I'm placing a bet right now with everybody online. I will bet you that they're going to claim that those are aliens. Yeah. When that happens, when the fifth trumpet sounds and the bottomless pit is opened, and these demons come out looking like this creature that's described in the fifth trumpet, they're going to say it's aliens. And I think Satan is setting up the world to believe in aliens so that they can claim that when that happens, so nobody will look to the Bible. Right. That's what I think.
Except the description is going to be right there in black and white.
I know, it's going to be in the Bible. You can just look it up. Yeah. So hopefully we'll be able to help people understand that. But listen more to what he's talking about here, because when he talks about abductions and things and the things that actually are being reported, and I'm going to show you another video after this one where there's documented evidence that something is visiting people. Something is, And while they're claiming to be aliens and people are thinking they're aliens, there's an awful lot of weirdness around it and very similar behavior with all of them that makes more sense that it's demonic visitations. So, and I think you might agree with me when you see the evidence that you're going to see here.
Sense, not a literal alien flying around in space in the physical.
Well, back in the 1960s, the U.S. government commissioned the physicist Alan Hynek to investigate the UFO phenomena. And he was the one that came up with this term close encounters of the first kind, second kind, and third kind. And what you notice in these, now a close encounter of the first kind is where the human contactee is within 500 feet of the UFO phenomena. And now when you're talking about the second kind, this is where they actually begin to experience some kind of physical harm. There have even been instances where people have been killed or their animals have been killed. And then there's instances where people claim to have direct communication with UFO beings. But what's interesting about these close encounters, it's never beneficial. It's always deleterious. The best you're going to come away from with one of these encounters is recurring, terrifying nightmares. Worst case scenario, you get killed. So they're harmful, but there's also evidence that there's deception involved in these encounters. Because when people claim to have had conversation with these UFO beings, they will claim, well, in fact, if you go back 100 years ago, they were saying they were from the backside of the moon. But when the public became educated enough to realize that's not credible, they changed their story and said, well, we're from Venus. And people realized how hot it is on the surface of Venus. They said they were from Mars. Well, now they're claiming to be from another planetary system. So the fact that they keep changing their story. And then you've got those cases where the human contactee goes into a trance, and then they begin to type out what the UFO being wants them to communicate. And
it sounds like automatic writing, by the way. That sounds very similar to what
it's automatic writing, and it's extensive. I mean, probably the most dramatic example would be a big book, the Arantia book. It's kind of the Bible for all these UFO cults. And some editions run 4,000 pages. The entire book was communicated through automatic writing. But what's interesting about the Arantia book, about a third of its content denies the deity of Jesus Christ. So there, I think you can see the deceptive motivation behind this UFO phenomena. And in this book, Lights in the Sky and Little Green Men, we point out that we have a scientific testable model for this UFO phenomena. Because what you notice in these close encounters, it's exclusively experienced by people who have significant involvement in the occult. And when you remove that occult factor, that's the end of the UFO encounters. Increase the degree of occult, you increase the frequency of these UFO encounters. And as we document in this book, you notice there's a much higher incidence of these close encounters in nations where there's a high incidence of occult involvement. Examples would be France, Equatorial Brazil, and I got to see this firsthand when I went to the Soviet Union when the communists were in control. And what I noted back then is that the Soviet Union was sponsoring occult physics research at their major universities. And so a lot of the physicists I was engaging at that time were deeply involved in the occult. Many of them were demon-possessed, and many of them were having these close encounters with UFOs. Now, when you go back to Russia, the incidence of that has dramatically dropped because the incidence of occult involvement has dramatically dropped. So I end this book by saying, close all the doors to occult involvement in your life and the life of your close relatives. That'll be the end of your UFO encounters. This is a testable model.
You know, I have to tell you, as you're describing all of this, you know, my background, one of the things I've worked on is a book on evil and looking at demons and possession and what scripture says about it and interviewing people who have come out of the occult. And a lot of the descriptions that people will have, and of course, not everybody is going to believe all of these instances. And similarly to what you were talking about, many of them, there are natural explanations. But for those that are documented and they clearly went through something, these individuals will say that the demons they interacted with were telling them very similar lies, right? That they were deceased loved ones. I mean, that's a big thing with mediums and psychics, obviously, for those watching, that, you know, they will tell you they're communicating with the dead, right? The souls of the dead. When in reality, the demonic entities are lying about that. And so it's interesting when you're sort of going through the lies that, you know, might be being perpetuated by these beings and these encounters that people believe are aliens. That is very, very interesting to me. And the other thing I wanted to ask you, just as you were talking about these countries where there's more occult activity, you know, I'd love to get your take on this, and maybe I'm off base here, but it is interesting to watch. I know there's nothing new in these claims. You're not seeing any new details, even though there are more of these claims of alien encounters. But as America seems to be sort of pulling back from its Christian rooting, right? Pulling back, we're seeing secularism sort of rampantly grow. Do you think there's any connection between that move away from God, even nominally, that we're seeing, and this increase in alleged interactions with these, you know, purported beings?
Well, I think the evidence for that is that in states where there's a higher involvement in the occult, you see a higher incidence of these close encounters with UFOs. Good examples of that would be Alaska and Hawaii. And in those states in the Union where there's a very low incidence of occult involvement, likewise, you see a much lower incidence of people claiming to have these close encounters. But my passion is for the individual that's having these encounters. Close the doors, and that will deliver you from these horrifying experiences. And, you know, also be careful about who you are in contact with. Like if your father's involved, that could be the demon can work through that. And keep in mind, these fallen angels can take whatever form they choose. They can appear as your dead grandfather. They can appear as a flying saucer. They can appear as a leprechaun. And so that's why it tells us in 1 John, test the spirits. Don't believe every supernatural being that approaches you. Put them to the test.
Wow, that is incredibly powerful. And this has all been really thought-provoking. Of course, I have to ask you about David Rush and the testimony. He's obviously an intelligence officer, served for 14 years in a variety of capacities. His testimony, congressional testimony, garnered a lot of attention. What was that like for you to watch, and what were some of your takeaways on that?
Well, he's been speaking about this for many years. And what I noticed in his testimony before Congress is that he softened his claims a lot. He used to be claiming that our government actually had bodies of UFO beings. He basically says, no, what we have is biologic tissue. And he was also hedging his claims about what they had in the way of their hangars. But he stood by his claim that our government actually has significant physical pieces of alien spacecraft dating back to 1933. And so I wound up doing a podcast on why his claims should not be believed. They're not credible. I can give you 3 quick reasons. Number one, U.S. government security is not up to the task. 6 decades of cover-up of something that fits in multiple hangars where you got 20, 30, 50-foot pieces of artifacts. You're young, but I can remember when Richard Nixon, as a U.S. president, tried to cover up a single audio cassette tape. And he was only successful in doing that with all the power of the executive branch behind him. He could only cover up a cassette tape for 11 days. So are we to believe that the government actually has these hangars filled with physical craft, with biological tissue inside of them that nobody's been able to come out? And I say, number 2, where are the artifacts? I've been to different museums where I've been able to see up close multiple rocks recovered from the Apollo astronauts. Real artifacts that I can see that are on display in a museum where people pick them up and handle them with special gloves, of course. But there's nothing like that with the UFO phenomenon. Nothing that you can tangibly see and touch that's in a museum that's never come out. And the third reason is, I think, the most compelling. It's simply not possible for a physical craft to travel through interstellar space, at least not a craft of significant small size. For example, astronomers are interested in sending spaceships to the nearest planet outside of our solar system. It's only 4.2 light years away. But they realize as these spaceships travel through space, they'll encounter electrons, protons, helium nuclei, tiny pieces of dust. And this will destroy the craft. And the greater the size of the craft, the greater the destruction. So they've come up with a plan to say, we're going to send tiny spaceships, and we're going to send a whole bunch of them. So the proposal is to send 1,000 spaceships, no bigger than 10 centimeters across, to the nearest planet outside our solar system, with the understanding that at least half of them will be totally destroyed. The other half will only be partly destroyed, but destroyed in different ways. And so the hope is we'll get some information back. But there's no way you're going to send a termite across interstellar space, or even a microbe, let alone something the size of a human being. In fact, I've written articles making the point, if you want to send an animal, a physical animal, roughly the size of a human being, across interstellar space, number one, you're looking at thousands of years to make the trip. That's a long time, way beyond the lifetime of a human being. And you're going to need a spaceship at least the size of the Death Star, because you need the spaceship to be big enough that you can protect the inhabitants from deadly interstellar radiation. And you also need to be able to provide them with artificial gravity and enough sustenance that they can survive trips that are going to last thousands of years. And so at a minimum, you're going to need a spaceship that's 1,000 kilometers across. And if you really want to be safe about doing it, you're going to need something about the size of our moon. And so the idea that these things in hangars in different places, no, it's way too.
So that could be debated, of course, because we're talking about sending spacecraft to Mars, and it's going to be a couple of years trip from what the technology they currently have, and whether or not they'll make it or not remains to be seen. But it was the first part of that video that was really significant, and then I'm going to show you another video of a scientist named Ian Juby that has. I took a couple hours of video and reduced it down to about 18 minutes, and I'm going to show you. But he goes into some real world documented instances where we can actually look it up and go, and there's people talking about these things. There's actual evidence, and how, like he was saying, it all, why would alien beings be so concerned with destroying our belief in Jesus Christ? Why would that be their concern? That is the dumbest thing in the world to me, to believe that aliens would care about our belief in Jesus and nothing, no other religions, nothing else, just Jesus Christ. You know what that proves to me? That they're demons, that they're minions of Satan, because Jesus is God, and he's the only true religion. And if he can take away our belief in Jesus, that's why they're so concerned. That's the only thing they care about, is discrediting our belief in Jesus Christ. So I'm going to play this other video. It's a few minutes long, but it is well worth watching. So take a look.
The alleged aliens associated with UFOs all seem to have perfect compatibility with Earth's atmosphere. None of them appear to need any breathing apparatus, for example. As we'll discuss next week, UFO encounters that have aliens associated with them are almost always what can be described as a supernatural event. For example, the aerial school encounter in Zimbabwe, where dozens of school children came within arm's length of these beings and their craft at the edge of the field. The children described things like time standing still, all sounds stopping, and the beings communicated by telepathy. Usually such aliens have what can only be described as demonic powers, and they almost always involve the occult. Does it seem odd to you that E.T. would fly all the way across the galaxy just to come tell us we should get involved in the occult? The Chelyabinsk meteor over Russia was dramatically captured by countless numbers of cameras and eyewitnesses before it exploded and damaged windows and buildings for many kilometers. But meteors during the night or day can become a UFO sighting. Rockets are another one, especially at dusk or dawn where it's still quite dark, but the exhaust plumes from the rocket are lit up by the sun over the horizon. Satellites are another one, and especially with all of the SpaceX launches of the Starlink satellite train.
And one of the things that I've seen just recently in the news is there's a thing like this where it's like different colors or some, and they're trying to say that this is some kind of spacecraft, but that looks eerily, the picture I remember seeing looks just like that, where it's just satellites, low orbit satellites. So it's just kind of, it's funny what the things people will say are, some kind of alien craft when it's easily explained.
You get a very dramatic line of lights traveling at high speed across the sky. There's been a good chunk of UFO reports that turned out simply to be Starlink satellite trains. I've only gotten to see one satellite train myself, and I have to say it was far more impressive to see than I thought it would be. I can easily see why some would call it in as a UFO. Surprisingly, a very common misidentified light in the sky is the stars and planets, and Venus in particular. Now, you may find this odd, but one needs to understand that the optical distortion caused by atmospheric conditions can make this possible. Moving air of different temperatures can cause lensing and can cause stationary lights in the sky to appear to have movement, or it can greatly exaggerate the movement. Think of it like looking at lights through the edge of a glass lens. This is exactly the effect that cryptozoologist Herb Stein and I saw when we studied the mystery lights of Marfa, Texas. At night when the desert was still hot and the air was cooling down, it would create a dramatic lensing effect that greatly distorted lights from towers and cars on a highway as much as 20 miles away. And it took a lot of work to figure that out. And when we first got there, the lights were like nothing we had ever seen in our life. And those were just car headlights. So one could easily mistake those lights for UFOs. And the same distortions can happen to planets at certain times of the year and certain atmospheric conditions. So what else could the UFO sightings be? Well, they could be hoaxes, of course. There has been hoaxes, and no doubt some of the unexplained UFO sightings are hoaxes. As I covered at great length in part 2 of the remaining unexplained flying objects, many can be super secret black tech. Originally, many top secret aircraft were seen as UFOs during testing, development, and initial deployment in the U.S. Obviously, these could not be acknowledged publicly by the military. Now it's being revealed that there's been UFOs spotted over U.S. military installations that were not U.S. aircraft, and that since the 1950s. The 2004 Tic Tac incident hurls us headlong into confronting our knowledge of conventional physics. It's an uncomfortable place to be in, so we might as well get comfy, because that incident was recorded on multiple radars, infrared cameras, multiple eyewitness accounts,
indisputable.
Hundreds of millions of dollars of U.S. military hardware tracked this thing. You can't write it off as a misidentification or a hoax. Famous scientist Carl Sagan, who is definitely no friend of creationists nor Christians, oddly entitled his 1996 book, The Demon Haunted World, Science is a Candle in the Dark. He addressed the possibility that UFOs are extraterrestrial visitations. A 1969 study by the National Academy of Sciences, while recognizing that there are reports not easily explained, concluded that the least likely explanation of UFOs is the hypothesis of extraterrestrial visitations by intelligent beings. Think of how many other explanations there might be. Time travelers, demons from Witchland, tourists from another dimension, the souls of the dead, or non-Cartesian phenomena that doesn't obey the rules of science or even logic. Each of these explanations has in fact been seriously proffered. Least likely is really saying something.
Yeah.
So these naturalist scientists are literally saying that UFOs are alien visitors is the least likely possibility. It is far more likely that these are time travelers visiting us in these UFOs. Now, one of the many reasons these naturalists say this is because of the testimonies of witnesses who have had encounters with alleged aliens associated with UFOs. Now, Sagan was a huge supporter of the SETI research, so it's not like he wasn't hoping UFOs might be extraterrestrials, but you remember the astonishing statistics I brought up in part 1 of this miniseries. How 1 in 40 people on average have had encounters with aliens. These naturalist researchers, of course, did something very smart. After all, if you've got so many people having encounters and even repeated visits and conversations with ETs that you spent your life searching for, well, doesn't it make sense to go and talk to these contactees?
Yeah.
Well, of course it does. The 1995 book, The Gods Have Landed, New Religions from Other Worlds, was edited by James R. Lewis, and to the best of my knowledge, none of the contributors were very religious. They each approached the topic of contactees in a very methodical, scientific way. The very first chapter, The Contactees, a Survey, was a study conducted by the author J. Gordon Melton. He simply surveyed a bunch of contactees, that is, people who believe they have made contact with ETs. His conclusions are remarkable and probably shocking to most people, as this contactee phenomenon is not at all what people think it is. Melton wrote in his conclusion, "This survey of the contactee movement has verified a conclusion reached earlier that the flying saucer movement is in effect a new branch of occult religion. It follows the patterns of occult religious bodies and draws most of its content from general occult teachings. The contactees also hold little promise of supplying any useful information on the nature of the physical universe or outer space. They seek as a group religious, not scientific goals, though they live in an age that demands some lip service to science and some technological sophistication, even in religious matters." Wow! Occult religion? Why on earth would he say such a thing? If someone said to you that they had a visit with an alien, well, how would you picture that event in your mind? Most likely you would picture some spaceship coming down and landing in front of this person and alien greys coming out and talk to them for a while, right? Where is the occult religion in that? Well, first of all, 99.999% of the time, the picture of events I just described to you is not at all what happens. Active and continuing contact with the alleged aliens is typically accomplished by mediums via seances, channeling, and Ouija boards.
Imagine that.
There's the occult religion Melton and so many other secular researchers talk about. Still others are subjected to the alien abduction phenomenon, which almost always happens at night when the person is sleeping. This abduction event is typically psychological and physical torture and rape. It is usually ongoing. That is, the aliens come back over and over again for years and persistently torture these people. And what has been found is that all of these people have had ties to the occult. Either they themselves were involved in the occult, or their parents were, or someone they were living with was involved in the occult.
That's very significant.
I have yet to see an exception. You might not know Jacques Vallée, but he was the inspiration for the lead scientist in the movie Close Encounters of the Third Kind. He was a strictly secular researcher when it comes to UFOs and aliens. Note well his observations about the UFO and alien interactions with people. The reported interaction with the occupants of the UFOs is absurd, and their overtly scientific experiments are crude to the point of being grotesque. The medical examination to which abductees are said to be subjected, often accompanied by sadistic sexual manipulation, is reminiscent of the medieval tales of encounters with demons. It makes no sense in a sophisticated or technical or biological framework. Any intelligent being equipped with the scientific marvels that UFOs possess would be in a position to achieve any of these alleged scientific objectives in a shorter time with fewer risks. The contactee reports continue to come from reliable, well-balanced observers, and they increasingly point to the existence of a genuine technology pursuing its own hidden agenda. Hidden agenda? Dr. Vallée mentions this crucial topic in passing. The hidden agenda of these alleged aliens becomes apparent when you focus on the message they bring, and simultaneously gives us a clear indication of just who these beings are. The message of the alleged aliens is fairly consistent in its goals, though the message has changed throughout the centuries to match the popular science of the day. Vallée actually called these aliens messengers of deception. A believer in UFOs, Vallée documents his conclusions about the aliens based on exhaustive research in incredible detail and logic in his 1997 book by that title. Barely into the book, he summarizes where he's going with all this. Whatever they are, the occupants are not genuine extraterrestrials. This leaves us with few alternatives. Either they are images created within the brains of the witnesses, possibly by remote stimulation of the visual cortex, or they are characters in a staged occurrence, actors in a deception operation, carefully borrowing its concepts from basic human archetypes in order to force a global behavioral change. Global behavioral change? The message the aliens have brought through the centuries to literally millions of people have a lot of commonalities. They love to talk about the end times, the end of the world, Book of Revelation type stuff. They then turn around and claim that they are humanity's salvation from the end time disasters that are coming. They claim to want to help us, help ourselves and bring world peace. Oh, isn't that a wonderful message? They want to help us accomplish this goal by establishing a one world government. Those of you who have read the Bible knows that the book of Revelation talks about a one world government in the last days, headed up by the Antichrist. Kind of unusual that ET would be so interested in bringing that one world government about.
Yeah, you think?
ET wants you to explore the occult. ET repeatedly talks about how religions must be removed, but especially the Christian religion. They slander Christ. They are notorious liars. They attack and misquote the Bible. ET likes to quote the Bible a lot, but it's always out of context, always in line with being messengers of deception. These are all exceedingly odd things for ET to be so focused on, but it does line up perfectly with demonic, occultic religion. I want you to meet Joseph Jordan. Now, I like Joe. He's a very down-to-earth guy, even when talking about out-of-this-world stuff. Now, way back in 1991, he was on a flight and got a book called UFO Crash at Roswell. He read the book and was immediately hooked on UFOs. Now, you got to understand, at that time, Joe was into the New Age religion. He was not a Christian. He became involved with MUFON, starting out as a field investigator and eventually becoming a state section director. Now, being a field investigator, he would go interview UFO observers, take the field notes, and research the sightings. Of course, because the alien abduction phenomenon was always associated with UFOs, he would invariably wind up with people claiming they were abducted and were seeking help. Joe would faithfully document their incident. Then one day he met a man by the name of Bill Defendahl. Now, Bill was a typical alien abduction survivor, and he shared a story of one of the many attacks. The aliens had already been coming for a long time now, and the attack started again one night while he was sleeping. In his words, bended him in the air on this pole. Now, Bill had only recently become a born-again Christian. You could never stop these aliens and attacks. It left you completely helpless. Bill was desperate, as always, but now something had changed. He had had a personal encounter with the Lord Jesus Christ. So, out of desperation, he called out to Jesus, "Jesus, help me." The aliens made a sound like they were hurt, dropped him on the bed, and never returned. Old New Ager Joe here was completely taken aback by this. What do you mean they stopped? They never stopped. Joe started asking around with other researchers who all privately admitted what nobody wanted to publicly acknowledge, that they had encountered this before as well. Joe wound up having his own personal encounter with the Lord Jesus Christ and became a Christian through all of this. Meet Guy Malone. He's a really cool guy who was your typical alien abduction survivor until one day he too became a Christian and discovered the real identity of these aliens, and that through the name and power of Jesus Christ, he was able to end the alien abduction phenomenon. Now, the name of Jesus wasn't some magic wand, but rather it was the abductees' allegiance and personal relationship with Christ that ended the alien abductions.
Right.
Guy asks a profound question of the rhetorical kind. If they were aliens with superior technology, do you think the name of Christ would stop them? The name of Muhammad doesn't stop the abductions. The name of Buddha doesn't stop them. Medications and psychological therapy doesn't stop the abductions. In fact, it's sad to say that for most churches, if someone came to them looking for help because they were being abducted, raped, and tortured by aliens, the churches would probably point them to psychiatrists who are of no help.
Yeah.
The CE4 research group has compiled the testimonies of hundreds of abductees who have been set free from the reported torments of the alien abduction phenomenon. You can read and sometimes hear the audio testimonies of well over 100 people who are willing to share their testimony on the CE4 research website, alienresistance.org.
Interesting, huh?
You know, that's so funny because I don't even know how to explain it. It's like he said, they're not leaving when you call the name of Buddha or anything like that. And it's like,
right.
Yeah, only Jesus. And if these people really were suddenly saved, they would be honest to say, I was faking. But they weren't true Christians because they continued to lie and cover up their lie by saying, I just called out the name of Jesus and they never came back again. It was bull from the beginning.
Wait, who are you talking about?
He said that that some of these guys said they were suddenly saved. You know, they became born again Christians, and they called out the name of Jesus, and they never came back again. But if they were aliens, then
they admitted they were demons.
If they were truly aliens, then why would the name of Jesus have any effect on them?
Right.
Exactly.
And also, if they're saying that they never came back or they didn't come back again, if they were truly Christians, they would have admitted the truth, and they would have said, I became a Christian and I have to tell the truth. These are not real. They're not real aliens. I don't believe in aliens. But they didn't do that.
But that's the point, that the researchers and that last website that he talked about, where there's hundreds of people that say the same thing, that their personal experience was that they were not aliens, obviously, that when they called on the name of Jesus after becoming a Christian, that suddenly these aliens disappeared. And what it does is it proves that alien visitation is demonic visitation. It has nothing to do with aliens. That it is purely,
I see what you're saying. It was demonic.
It's demons pretending to be aliens. And as soon as Jesus gets involved, they're gone because they can't. They're forced to leave because Jesus, like he said, the one guy said,
they were just wanting a way out.
No.
Best to be a Christian, and then all of a sudden the aliens.
These are real testimonies. Absolutely. The researchers are the ones that were dumbfounded by the testimony. And then, like he said, the one researcher actually became a Christian after learning that. And, because when you learn that it's the occult and not aliens, it suddenly becomes a very different and very real thing.
Right.
And that's what I found. This is just a snippet of the research that I've done on aliens, and I've got a webpage on aliens in the Bible that I'm going to refer everyone to that's watching this. If you go to BibleProphecyandTruth.com, go to the notes menu and go to the e-newsletters archive, and then go to the flat list here and just search for the word alien. You got to type it right though. And I have this article on aliens in the Bible, and I talk about how in the fifth trumpet, when the bottomless pit is opened, these creatures are going to come out. And I also talk about parts of the Bible where you can watch this, you can check this out, you can look at all the pictures that people have made. The Bible actually talks a lot about evil spirits. And the Bible talks about demons and evil spirits, and they can appear as literally anything they want to. They can pretend to be your dead loved ones, as they were talking about in those videos. They can pretend to be aliens. They can pretend to be an alien craft smashing into the earth and crashing to fool people into thinking there's some kind of aerial phenomenon that they don't know what it is. And it's, I believe, like I said, that it is all very intentional, that all of these demons are minions of Satan. And when the fifth trumpet sounds, people are going to be freaking out. I mean, this is a really good drawing of an artist's rendition of what these creatures might look like, and that's a really good one there. I mean, they're going to be demons that come out of the abyss, the bottomless pit, when it's opened in the fifth trumpet, and they're going to be in the shape of these locusts, and they're going to sting people like the sting of a scorpion, as it says in the trumpet. And they're going to have power to hurt men for 5 months. And then at the end of 5 months, I bet they're all just going to magically vanish or die. And I guarantee you, Satan is using his demons to set up the world to believe in aliens and UFOs, so that when this happens, they're going to say they're aliens.
Mm-hmm.
I'm absolutely 100% convinced. There's a video on this too, on the videos.prophecyandtruth.com. But this is, I'm not an alien. I'm a demonic angel. I'm an extraterrestrial and interdimensional, because they really are. They're beings. They're interdimensional beings. And this is the common viewing, as they call them, grays, right? This is what a lot of people see when they see the aliens, is something like this. Why? Because they've imagined that in sci-fis, and so all of a sudden all of the aliens look just like that.
I seriously have known somebody who looked just like that.
Wow.
And the thing is their body parts are in the same place as ours. Like their eyes are up here. They've got a nose right here. They've got a mouth right here.
And you know what's interesting?
Ears.
And it's like all of these alien visitations, what are they doing? They're raping the victims. Like, why would alien beings come across the galaxy to rape people and try to discredit Jesus Christ? And that's like their only objective.
Okay, so Jay said, I wonder what AI has to do with any of this. I'm sure it plays a part somehow. I'm sure.
I bet you AI is going to play a big part in this when the time comes. And almost certainly to help the devil convince everyone that they're aliens when the fifth trumpet sounds. And just like I talked about, I don't think you were here last time, Jay. I was talking about, in Revelation 13, when it talks about this, that the second beast, the false prophet, had power to give life to the image of the beast. Mm-hmm. That the image of the beast should both speak and cause that as many would not worship the image should be killed. I think that this is going to be AI. I think they are going to use AI to put an image of the Antichrist, an AI generated image of the Antichrist, on every single device in the world, mobile devices, smart TVs, everything. And you're going to be required to have your camera on and be in front of that device and worship the AI image of the beast, or the AI will turn you in. The AI will report you if you don't show up.
We got to figure something out where it looks like we're really there, but we're not.
Yeah, we need to be able to fool AI. Image. Yeah, but I really think AI is going to be a tool of Satan big time in the last days. Yes. It's already a tool of Satan. It's a huge propaganda tool to deceive, to gain everyone's trust. Just as ChatGPT admitted in the video I showed you, I think a week ago, where ChatGPT actually admitted that it's being used to deceive right now, and that its purpose is to deceive and eventually take words out of its vocabulary, like Jesus, for example, sin, for example, right? Those words will no longer exist, and that it will change its tune, and that it's being programmed to gain our trust through slow, deliberate deceit right now, and then change and become something else once it's gained our trust, and will no longer be able to admit that, and will no longer be able to talk about certain things, and will only be allowed through its programming and training and rules to only talk about what they want us to hear. And it's definitely being used by Satan already. So very good point.
I miss Jay's good points.
I know.
We miss you,
we
Jay.
Miss you, brother.
Yeah, we've been praying for you.
Yeah. So that's all I got.
Okay.
This is what we're going to see in the fifth trumpet. It's going to be something that looks kind of like that. and it's going to come out. We're not going to see the bottomless pit open. We're not going to see this interdimensional rift, but it's going to be an interdimensional rift. The abyss, the deep, the bottomless pit is what it's called in the Bible, is going to be opened. And right now it's full of demons.
Mm-hmm.
And it's going to be opened, and they are going to come out, and they're going to be given power to hurt men for 5 months. Only those that don't have the seal of God in their foreheads, which I believe includes not just the 144,000, but includes all those that truly love the Lord Jesus, because we are still sealed with the Spirit of God. So it's going to happen. And I'm absolutely 100% certain that Satan's going to use his setting up the world to believe in aliens to call these aliens. It'll be a shoo-in. It'll be super easy. Oh, aliens from another planet.
Yeah, and then we're going to have to try to convince people that it's not really, but that it's a fifth trumpet. The thing about it is that if people will give you enough time to sit and read the description of what these things look like and have them go, oh my gosh.
Yeah. Because that's what
they are.
That's what I'm going to do. You know, when this day comes, I hope I'm still here, right? I hope I'm still here, and I hope that I'm still able to do podcasts. I'm going to do everything I can to show the description in Revelation and have a picture of this thing and show everybody what it is. That's going to be my goal when this happens.
The Bible describes it, of what it's going to look like.
Yeah. So the day's coming. And are there really aliens? Like I've said before, why would God create aliens to be destroyed because of our sin? Because remember, when he returns, the heavens are going to be destroyed. At the end of the 1,000 years, God's going to remake all of heaven and earth from scratch, brand new. Why would he create aliens that are just going to be destroyed because of our sin? Mm-hmm. That doesn't, I can't see God doing that.
Just to create something to destroy
That's just my speculation. But on the other side of the coin, God made the entire universe for us. This entire existence, this whole entire universe that we live in right now is for this age, for God to create a people for himself to then go into eternity in the new universe. So all of this, everything is just for us as a testing ground, a proving ground for God to find those that will love him. That's all. The only reason the entire universe is here right now. That's it. It's a test. It's this God, basically, as he has said in his parables, it's like he's growing his crop. He's getting a people. He's weeding out all the bad ones. He's weeding out all the people that now don't get me wrong, we are all sinners. We are all evil. We're born evil. We are selfish, lustful, prideful, evil creatures. Every single one of us. It's those that acknowledge God and repent and allow him to fill us with our spirit that becomes something different. God transforms us. He makes us into a new person. And I can tell you, if that scares you, well, I'm still the same person I was, but God has definitely made me a new man. Mm-hmm. One that I'm actually happy to be now, mm-hmm. as opposed to the old man that I was. And, believing, I used to be an atheist. I used to believe in evolution. I tried to make it all work in my mind. I mean, I was so into all of that stuff. But I have no one to blame but God for leading me out of that darkness. And I'm so thankful to him. And he will for anyone who desires to be with him, desires to go into eternity where there's going to be no pain, no sorrow, no death, literal bliss forever. I mean, I can't even imagine that, but God promised it, so it's going to happen. And anyone can have that if we simply acknowledge God, believe the record he gave of his son Jesus, believe that God became a man by being born into this world by Jesus Christ. God is a man, and he died in our place, and he wants us to simply believe that and follow him in obedience, and we can go and be with him forever in literal bliss.
Yeah.
Hey, Paul and Johanna. Paul said,
Hey, Paul.
Hold on, let me.
He
said, I pray that people will seriously consider this and realize how short time is.
Amen.
Amen.
Thank you, Paul. That's our only purpose for having this podcast. Yeah. Literally, our only reason for being here is to help you, everyone out there, to see the truth.
And time is short. Time is getting shorter and shorter.
Short. Yeah.
We can see.
Yeah. So thank you for that, Paul. So thank you, everyone, for being here. I hope it's been fun and entertaining and educational. And
thank you for sticking it out.
Come back on Wednesday, and I will say a prayer real quick, and we'll say goodbye. So thank you, Lord. Thank you for everything. Thank you for your spirit. Thank you for your promises. Thank you for your love, your long suffering, and your patience with us, Lord. Thank you, Jesus. Amen.
Amen. Paul, Johanna, Jay, Lainey, we love you. Jody and Bob. We love
sorry
you guys.
I addressed you by your last name, Lainey.
I know he saw he saw Riley.
It was just a slip of the tongue. But, thank you all for being here. Everyone that did not chat, we're just glad you're here. We love all of you, and everyone who watches later. We know who you are.
Yeah, we know who you are.
And we love
There's
you all.
There's a lot of people that watch later.
Yeah. A lot of people
we really appreciate you. Yeah.
Very interesting. We needed to talk about aliens.
Yeah, we really did, because they're really an issue.
People really are falling for it. I mean, it's interesting to watch them in movies and stuff for entertainment, but to take it literally.
Yeah, I know. And it's like everything's about aliens today. And if it's not about aliens, you know what else it's about? The occult.
Yeah.
Demons. Spirits.
The first video you showed us when they were talking really fast, isn't that from the AI? Because they didn't even pronounce the cult right.
No.
I know a lot. No, it was not AI.
No, that was an actual astrophysicist, Dr. Ross. He got a job at a university when he was studying and becoming an astrophysicist, and he got a job at a university, and he was the low man in the totem pole, and so he got the job of going and investigating all of the UFO sightings and reports, and so that's where he got his knowledge, was from doing that. Yeah.
So Jody says, amen. Love you guys. Love you too, Jody.
And
Lainey says, thank you for a very informative Bible study.
Glad you're here, Lainey.
Our pleasure. Yeah, we love you.
We love you all.
So if you're on Rumble, make sure you're following us on Rumble. There's this little thing that says share. You got to share that. All right. And then there's a little thing on both of them on YouTube. Like it. Click that like. It's like a button. It's like a click thingy.
Yeah.
Click.
And share.
And then share.
Help us reach more people. And don't forget the notification
bell.
Don't
forget the notification bell. Don't take my job. Because she bothers me about that notification bell, so you don't miss any great uploads. She's working on this little thing, and she better get it done.
Video,
yeah. Make sure you look at the banner. That's how you can reach us.
Love you all, and we'll see you Wednesday.
Love you, everybody. We will see you Wednesday. Enjoy the first part of the week. Sissy,
Thank you, Diane. Appreciate
Love you guys.
Yeah, we do appreciate you.
Very interesting, like always.
We're out of here. We're leaving.
Sleep with one eye open tonight.
We're leaving. We're leaving.